Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the INT Earth's Dominant Elite Yamcha. Now I didn't manage to pull him, so we're going to be using him as a friend lead, which will lower his overall performance a little bit. Remember, he won't be operating under a 200% lead, he'll be operating under around 180% lead and 170% lead, but just bear that in mind. Also, I'm going to be using rainbow friends. I literally cannot find 55% friends. I don't know what's going on with my friend system, but I mean, look, it's blessing me with rainbow Yamchas, but yeah, it's unfortunately not always the best to start with the rainbow. I don't really like to review rainbow units right off the bat, but for God Goku and Yamcha it seems to be all I can find. So Yamcha is a Earth-bred fighters or Saiyan Saga category lead of Ki plus 3 HP attack and defense of 170%, with an additional HP attack and defense of 30% for characters who belong to the Earthlings or Turtle School category. I think the Turtle School category was a nice addition here. It basically covers Goku's. I know it may not look spectacular at first, but it literally covers Goku characters, which is smart for the most part. He raises attack for 1 turn and causes immense damage with a high chance of stunning the enemy. Then he activates his entrance animation once only and has Ki plus 2 and attack and defense of 150% for 4 turns from the start of turn, when there are another 5 or more Earthbred Fighters category allies on the team at the start of his attacking turn. He has Ki plus 2 and attack and defense of 150%, plus an additional attack and defense of 30% with each attack performed up to 150% max. Medium chance, which is 30% of a critical hit, and a high chance, which is 50% of evading the enemy's attack, including super attack. He launches an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super attack, and launches an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super attack within the same turn after evading an attack. He has an additional chance of evading the enemy's attack, including super attacks, of plus 10% within the same turn with each super attack performed. His active skill will cause ultimate damage to the enemy, and within the turn activated, his attacks are guaranteed to hit, and this can be activated after he evades 4 or more enemies' attacks, or when all allies attacking in the same turn are Earthbred fighters. He is on his link skills are Turtle School, Solid Sport, Infighter, Z-Fighters, Kamehameha, Shocking Speed, and Fierce Battle. And his category is Worthy Rivals, Kamehameha, Earthlings, Turtle School, Saiyan Saga, Earthbred Fighters. So one thing I want to get off the bat before we talk about Yamcha's performance as a unit: Earthbred Fighters is a very strong category. To cut a long story short, most times it just ends up being a kind of adaptation of the movie Heroes category, but you've got some really strong units in there. Essentially it's very close to being these E-Fighters, it's just not including Vegeta. But you have Trunks, you have Gohan, you have Goku, you have all the Piccolos, you have all the TNs, you have all the Krillins, and you have all the Yamchas, as well as, I believe Pan also is underneath there. So I believe Pan is also there as well. Videl is also there. Chi-Chi is also there. So you pretty much have everyone but Vegeta. I think you even have Bulma. So you have everything. Master Roshi, Bulma, etc. So it's good. It's a good category. It's a very, very big category, and it's got a lot of strong units because of that. So right off the bat, Yamcha's leader skill is very good. So just understand that, basically. Then, let's talk a little bit about Yamcha. So, well, first let's take a look at this turn, and then we'll talk a little bit about how he functions as a unit, because that's also something that's quite important for understanding Yamcha. So this is a good rotation for him, by the way, a lot of support on the rotation. He's looking pretty solid with his defense. He still has his 4-turn start of battle buff going on, so obviously that's why he looks quite high in terms of defense. The thing is his 4-turn buff helps him in the start of the battle. Once he's fully built up his attack and defense, he ends up still being very good. At a rainbow level, he'll be above 400,000. Whereas at a 55% level, he'll be closer to the 300k mark. So obviously there's a big difference because of the difference in stats, but it's not like he has no defense. So just to clarify, Yamcha does have decent defense. I think that's pretty obvious, and when he pops off, he has very good offense, like very, very good offense. So it's just kind of that juxtaposition of the amount of times you're going to see Yamcha pop off and the amount of times you're not going to see him pop off. Now, to see Yamcha kind of truly access his full strength, you have to do a couple of things. So firstly, Yamcha needs to evade before he attacks. So by evading before he attacks, he gives himself that additional super with a high chance to be a super attack. Now, if you have Yamcha and you basically have him super 3 or 4 times, he can do some really big damage. Yamcha can start out with 5 or 6 million attack stats and end up firing a 5, a 6, a 7, and an 8. You could fire a 6, a 7, an 8, and a 9, and they could all crit, and you could like insta-kill or do half damage to some of the game's toughest enemies. Like you can do a lot of damage with Yamcha when he pops off. The big thing is though, is for all those extra super attacks, you need to have him dodge first. So if you don't have the super attacks, his potential offense basically gets dropped quite substantially, because hidden potential system isn't necessarily as big a chance as his passive, although it does count, and if you build him full additional, that is a good avenue to go in, and we'll talk about his build now. But it is important to understand that there is this kind of juxtaposition between them. You want him to be in the first slot because you want him to evade attacks before he attacks, but being in the first slot means he hasn't fired an attack, which means he basically is relying entirely on his admittedly good maxed out 400k defense and his 50% evasion. When I say relying on this, I don't mean in a bad way. 400k defense, 50% evasion, that can't be, to say someone's relying on that like it's a hindrance is not, I think fair. The big thing is though, is if he gets hit by a super attack, you are going to lose, and that's okay. I honestly think if you think about the whole of Dokkan, most units cannot handle a super attack. Yes, at 55% Yamcha first slot to activate his evasion, maybe not the gamble you want to take. 55% Yamcha is more floating Yamcha. Double dupe Yamcha is more first slot gamble Yamcha. I think that's just how it works with dupes with this unit. I think it's just that difference in defense, that difference in hidden potential system. Talking about hidden potential system, I do think personally that high additional into high crit or crit is best for this unit. I know I've seen people go kind of like full dodge, kind of meme builds. I'm not really a fan of that. I think he's got more than enough dodge as is. I would say you want to go for additionals, you want to get that quadruple super, because then after supering, he'll have good defense. And also if you want to run him as a floater, he'll still have very good defense through his evasion. Because let's say, for example, you have high additional, your chance of getting 3 supers is pretty good, and 3 supers pushes his evasion to 80%, which is very, very good. So Yamcha for me is a unit that's a little bit interesting in design. I think he's a lot of fun in that way. I think he is a bit of a Russian roulette, he's a bit of a gamble, but honestly, if you had to make a Yamcha unit, would you expect it to be any other way? Like, Yamcha as a character, the way he's been throughout the series, do you really think his card or his unit would be so straightforward that it would be a unit that you could just slot into slot 1? Has Yamcha ever been a slot 1 kind of fighter? And I think that's just how Yamcha is. I think that's just how the game treats him, and I like him. I like a bit of the chaos he brings. Obviously, at 55%, I think it's maybe too chaotic. Like, I think he's a lot of fun, but I think it's a bit too chaotic. Whereas I think at rainbow level, it's a lot more. It removes a bit of that risk. That extra, 100k defense he's rolling around with really does remove like a lot of the risk. It means that normals aren't going to absolutely rip him to shreds if you don't dodge. It means that you'll just take a bit of light damage, sometimes even no damage. And yeah, I think there's that conversation to be had that he is, all units benefit from dupes, but I think for him, he definitely does benefit a lot from dupes. His active skill is great, very, very non-conditional. Only thing that I don't like about the active skill is, okay, it does damage, and you obviously have his crit chance from his passive. Guaranteed to hit's not the greatest mechanism right now. I think, there will be events in future, I hope, that make better use of the concept of guaranteed to hit. Maybe more virtual Dokkan Ultimate Clashes where it's more useful, or things like that. Because I do think, there's something there in terms of making really evasive bosses and making things like Yamcha's abilities far more useful. Here we're going to be taking a look. In this situation, we have a fully built up Yamcha. So as you can see, when he's in the middle slot and he's got Turtle School, he's got all his key links active, he's at like 520k. Yeah, good defense. 520k is really solid. One really cool thing about his active skill is his active skill actually will proc his passive. So you will have 60% in terms of evasion. So it's a little 10% kind of boost. It's really quite nice. So Yamcha looks solid from that perspective. Obviously we've shifted him off just because I want to get the evasion before he attacks. And that evasion before he attacks is also very critical because that's going to enable us to get an additional super attack potentially. But you can see, like, if he had a really, really dope Turtle School pairing partner that he could get Turtle School active with, I would say he's, really, really solid. There are a couple good partners out there, but just not necessarily for Red Zone itself. But Yamcha looks really good. You can see here he's doing some really good damage. 7.75 million. Another super attack, and we're looking at over 8 mil. Another one, we're looking at 9 mil. I mean, it's good. It's really, really good stuff. He's obviously fully built up. He's got support. He's not under a 200% leader skill, so like I stated, that could go up even further. But you can see that there is the capacity for Yamcha to be insane. Like, Yamcha's the kind of unit that when he works for you, when he gets going, when everything aligns, he's gonna look nuts. And then there's gonna be moments where you go, wow, this unit does not work. And that's just how he is. That's just how his design is. Evasion units are like that. It's very... You look at MUI Goku. MUI Goku, when he gets 4 dodges and all in a row, and his defense goes up, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this guy is crazy. This guy is so good. And then you're going to have those moments where he doesn't dodge the first 2 attacks, doesn't increase his defense, gets absolutely slaughtered by a super attack afterwards. And you think it's a waste of time. That's just how it is. In terms of link skills, I think Yamcha's link set's not too bad, actually. Shocking Speed, Kamehameha, Fierce Battle. These are solid foundationary links. He's got Shocking Speed for key, he's got Turtle School for key, and he's got Fierce Battle and Kamehameha, which are super common. He then gets a little bit wonky with links such as Solid Support and Infighters and Z-Fighters. Although these are all just attack links, and yes, they do help him obviously perform really well attack-wise, but they're not necessary. I would probably say just having Shocking Speed and Kamehameha and Fierce Battle is kind of enough to get going with Yamcha. You don't even need Shocking Speed because he gives himself key. In theory, you don't need any links. Turtle School is his best link by a country mile, but it is also the hardest one for him to get because it's, Master Roshi's, Krillin's. There's not a lot of notable units that have Turtle School. Like, probably the absolute best unit that has Turtle School is LR Master Roshi. Like, I think that's really it when it comes to the units that have Turtle School. So we are definitely needing a new kind of Turtle School based unit. With that being said, he's pretty good. Like I said, he doesn't need his links to go crazy. If you've got them, fantastic. But I think he's a great floater. I think his leader skill's awesome. It enables so many teams. It allows you to really run a lot of great teams. I think you build him into additionals. He fires 2 additionals. He has 70% evasion. He, just does his thing as a floater. That's where I see him. Maybe other people won't like that. The notion is that units must always be super strong and buff and be able to be first slot or second slot. Yamcha could be either of those, depending on what your dupes are in him and what your RNG's luck is like, whether you've prayed to RNG's. But generally, I think if you consistently run him as a floater and build the rest of your team around other rotations, I think you'll have a lot more fun with Yamcha than you will if you're trying to constantly run him as the main unit. And you can run him as the main unit. There's no reason not to. You saw he links up with Beast Gohan. If you've got a couple dupes in him, he'll have 500k defense, he'll have 50% evasion, and he can be a pseudo evasion tank for the first slot. And all of a sudden, things aren't looking so bad. But at the same time, you do need to understand that there are limits to him as a unit, and your enjoyment will be dependent on RNG. But I think overall he's really good. I like him. 8 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. Really solid. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.